across for you now, live to the White House. Let's show you some historic scenes unfolding right now. You see there Donald Trump arriving at the White House with Melania, greeted there by Joe and Dr. Jill Biden. They are to briefly have a cup of tea, we're told, before they head to the inauguration ceremony. Highly symbolic there, the incoming and outgoing US presidents meeting briefly there outside the White House. There they are, going in to share a brief few words before the inauguration ceremony gets underway. Worth saying as well that this is part of a historic ritual in Washington. The peaceful transfer of power does normally involve the ingoing and the outgoing US presidents meeting briefly before the inauguration ceremony. What is unusual, though, this time around is that the ceremony is taking place not outdoors, but rather indoors in the Capitol building, this because of the extremely cold weather. But what makes that symbolically really interesting this time around is that this is the place 4 years ago where supporters of Donald Trump attacked after he claimed falsely that he had won the election. So it is going to be an event steeped in symbolism today. Well, let's speak to France 24's Douglas Herbert, who's watching some of these historic scenes with me now. All right, well, I was going to speak to Douglas Herbert, but I understand we've lost our connection with him. Kethevane Gorjestani, though, with me here in the studio, foreign affairs commentator, former Washington correspondent herself, a woman who understands very well the kind of mechanics of what we've been looking at today. And Kethevane, look, tell us a bit about this transfer of power. We've just seen Donald Trump go into the White House with the Bidens. Do we know how long they're going to be talking to each other for, the kinds of things they might be talking about?
Well, this is more of a sort of symbolic moment for the normal transition of power between U.S. presidents, something that we didn't see 4 years ago when I was in Washington, because, of course, that time Joe Biden went to Congress to be inaugurated by himself. Donald Trump was not attending, so you didn't see all of this part. But this is more traditional in what we're seeing, which is that the outgoing president and the First Lady hosts the president-elect and the future First Lady for sort of tea. So this is very sort of informal, probably going to be discussing a few niceties. And then we're going to see President Joe Biden with President-elect Donald Trump expected to travel to Congress, to that inauguration together in the same car we are expecting. We'll see if that actually turns out to be true. And one thing that is set to happen, which I don't think happened last time around, is that Joe Biden will leave a letter, which is also very much the tradition, the outgoing president leaving a letter for his successor in the Oval Office. So this is really one of those moments where it's more about symbolism and the sort of niceties before we get into the sort of formal inauguration ceremony. But to be a fly on the wall in that car, if they do travel together, Joe Biden and Donald Trump, what they're going to be saying to each other would be very interesting to know. Yeah, fascinating indeed. Obviously, Kethevane, we won't have our eyes in the car. We won't know what they're talking about, but we will
will be watching very closely the body language of everybody during the inauguration ceremony itself. Speak to us a bit about the kind of characters who are attending and who isn't going as well, because this is a smaller ceremony. It's taking place indoors because of the weather, and some very well-known figures, Michelle Obama being one, aren't actually going to the inauguration.
Yeah, so there are several different things. One is the sort of the boycott, if you will, crowd that are giving excuses for not being there, but didn't want to attend, like Michelle Obama, like several figures of the Democratic Party who will not be attending that inauguration. Some of them explaining why they're not attending. For example, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the progressive representative who said, "I do not celebrate rapists." That was her message on social media to explain why she was not attending. So you're going to see some people that won't be there. Another thing that's going to be different is the presence of several foreign leaders, because you have to remember that this is not at all a tradition in U.S. politics to have foreign leaders taking part or attending presidential inaugurations. But this time you have people from around the world, like Javier Milei, the president of Argentina, also the president of Ecuador. You have the prime minister of Italy, Giorgia Meloni. All of these people will be there. I believe it is the vice president of China that is representing Xi Jinping at this inauguration. And you have also figures, not leaders, but figures of foreign politics. You have several members of the French far right who are traveling for this inauguration. So you're going to see a lot of foreign faces. But of course, as you mentioned, the fact that it's being held inside means that there are going to be fewer of these people. There are a lot of VIPs who participated, donated to Donald Trump's campaign, to his inauguration, and not everybody is going to get the best seat in the House, because the rotunda, of course, is a much smaller space. And one last thing about the going indoors, if you will, is that Donald Trump is not going to have one of the things that he loves the most. We know how much he loves talking about the size of the crowds that attend his events. And he was probably looking forward to this National Mall being filled with his supporters. They were expecting about 200,000 people in Washington, D.C. for that inauguration. In the end, it's going to be several hundred in the rotunda. Those are going to be the officials and the VIPs. And then there's going to be a sort of overflow crowd watching the inauguration at Capital One Arena, which is a sports arena, that fits about 20,000. So that's a far cry from what was supposed to be the crowd. But I do not doubt that Donald Trump is going to find a way to celebrate this with his supporters. There's still some doubt as to what he's going to do once he's inaugurated. There usually is a parade from Congress to the White House, and there was some debate as to whether or not there will be a small portion of that where people will be able to get a little bit closer and to see the newly inaugurated president make his way to the White House.